from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased. Joining me from the US, Will Blackburn. Will, thank you very much for being with me on the show today. The way I love to do it is I keep it to my guests to tell us a little bit more about, yourself, your journey, and what you're currently up to. So the floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here. My name is Will Blackburn, and I am currently a co-founder of a startup that's located here in the Southeast United States called DevClarity, and we are creating a platform for software development leaders to help them better manage their team. And so to give you a little insight into why we're tackling that problem, I can go back a few more years. About 8 years ago, I was a founding employee of another software company. Day one employee, and I was the sole software developer. And then over the course of about 7 years, I grew into the CTO role and went from the only software developer in the company to eventually managing a software and product team of about 35. That was across the United States. And so learned a lot through that journey, made a lot of mistakes, and really came to the conclusion that while there's a lot of tools out there for software developers, and you always have developers building tools for developers, there's not a ton of tools out there for dev leaders. And so a lot of that journey I went on was trial by fire, jumping into the deep end and learning how to swim. And so now dedicating my time building a platform to help dev leaders.
Cool. And thank you again, Will, for being here with me today. So, it seems like your journey was, from the beginning in software development. Just out of curiosity, I ask this sometimes to my guests. Why did you choose this path? I would say, and what was the thing that attracted you most for software development?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really fell in love with software when I was at university, college, as we call it. And through that journey, just the first thing that I learned was that with software, I could just build something from scratch. And it was this amazing feeling to be able to sit down at my computer and then a few hours later, a few days later, have an application that I've built that I can put out in the world and that other people can use and it can solve their problems. And so really the first time I did that, I went to a library. I wasn't sure where my career was going to go, but I'd always loved kind of tinkering with technology, and sat down with actually a PHP and MySQL for Dummies book. And sat there and went through the tutorial, and I kind of modified the tutorial for something that I cared about and a problem that I knew that people had. And from then on, I've been really kind of addicted to technology and finding ways to solve other people's problems with it. And so as I've seen technology advance over the past 10, 15 years, it's only made me more excited about what we can do and the problems we can solve and how we can push the world forward with technology.
Amazing. I want to go back. You just explained about what you do at DevClarity, but I want to also figure out from you, Will, of course, being a developer yourself, maybe you've seen some of that, and you just explained that, I know, But when was the moment when you said, okay, this is something that is big enough? A lot of people probably are facing, these issues, and we need to sit down and build something for that. So what was the trigger for you to start, building DevClarity?
Yeah. Um, Really, I felt a lot of that when we were building our last company. Our last company was a fintech company, financial technology company. And as really, I was a first time development leader and first time CTO. And then we went through COVID and the market went crazy. Developers were getting sniped left and right for 2 times as much as they were making prior. And it was a crazy time to be a dev leader and to really learn about software development. And I was just shocked at the lack of help and tools that I had in that process. I was doing things in Excel and OneNote, and was relying on kind of generalist HR tools that just didn't understand software development and how software developers are different and the technical nuance that comes with it. And so even then I was frustrated, and that's always good motivation for a software developer to start to tinker and build with something. And I didn't have time then, but our company sold in December of 2022. And so when the company sold, that's when I could really like turn back to that problem and start talking with other people. And as we went out and talked with other development leaders, we heard the same stories, that it's difficult to manage already. It's probably even more difficult to manage software developers because of the technical nuance and how skills and system expertise kind of hides beneath this fog that is technology. And so that's when my co-founder and I really knew that this is an area where we wanted to spend our time.
So if I want to come, before I shift, to some other topics,
Yeah.
as a leader, as in, maybe I would believe, your ultimate customer or ultimate persona would be engineering managers, probably, um, you correct me if I'm wrong, like probably maybe even VP of engineering. I'm not sure if they would be interested. So when I would use your tool, Will, or your solution, so the direct benefit that I would get, if you can explain that to us a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It's essentially engineering managers, but then also VPs, directors, and we eventually want to serve, true CTOs of larger organizations.
Mhm.
Yeah, the main benefit that they're getting is some structure and help around what are kind of the core management functions of a software development leader. And so at kind of the lowest level for engineering managers, that starts with kind of developer specific one-on-ones. And so you can take developer specific one-on-ones, you can track action items that developers are working towards. But then as you look at what a VP and a CTO cares about, they care a little bit more about creating the structure for their managers to be successful in helping them. And so that's where we come in with helping them understand what skills breakdown looks like across the organization, or who has the systems expertise. How do those play into the conversations that the engineering managers are having with their software developers? And kind of always goes back to, are your developers happy, unblocked, and productive? And so if you can make sure your developers are that, then it's going to be a win-win across the board.
Cool. Now, you mentioned something about how, of course, and all of us, we're witnessing, and personally, I witnessed that fast change in technology. But when it comes to software development, like, what are like the biggest one that you are, or we experienced, and now we are experiencing? Of course, I know like AI would be the one, but how AI is shifting, the way software development is done today?
Yeah. Yeah, it's changing so much. It's kind of hard to understate how much it's changing software development. And so, I think the first place people go is that it can increase productivity. And I think that that's the right place to start. It's really a leverage multiplier for software development organizations. And so what we've seen in both our own experience, but also being able to talk, and since we serve software development leaders, we get to hear their stories and we get to hear what they're doing and what's working and what's not working. Um, Almost every company we talk to today has rolled out some sort of AI coding assistant. Most frequently, it's something like Copilot inside their editor that's helping their software development team just write code and take away some of the kind of more boring, monotonous work that developers have to do. And that's where it's starting. But then we're also starting to see it creep into other parts of the software development lifecycle. So whether that is, more on writing requirements and getting help with that and making sure those are well defined before it gets truly assigned to a developer or the developers involved in that process, or whether it's on the other side through writing test or performing test. It's really starting to change so much, and it's moving at a rapid pace.
So can we say it's working on the both sides of the productivity and the creativity? Can we say this, Will?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's how I personally experienced it as well. And so I think, a lot of people like to kind of put it in the box of just, okay, this is Copilot now. It's inside VS Code. It's inside my editor, and now it can, write some lines of code for me that are highly predictive. But it really can do much more than that. And that's where I think that if you look at companies today, most of them have checked that first box of, okay, we figured out security and compliance enough, or we're happy with what these companies are saying, what Microsoft's saying, to where now I've got Copilot helping out my developers. And what those companies are starting to look at is how can we help out in the other areas? And one of those is in kind of the creative problem solving. I think that's where it can continue to help developers move a little faster and create higher quality products by not having it just do that all on its own, but sitting there alongside a developer or someone who's responsible for writing those requirements and helping them out.
Right. If I want to ask here about, from writing code is okay, how, I'm not the expert here, so I'm asking you, Will, how good AI is today in putting, let's say, requirements for a project? So, I mean, in another sense, like you need to write the code and you might ask the AI, chat GPT, Copilot, whatever, okay, write me, for example, a code that does blah, 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 blah. But is it good now enough? So I give a requirement and then it decides like, okay, what exactly need to be built? So it start to structure, the things in a proper manner. Is it reaching this phase or not yet?
Yeah. My answer is it can be. And this is where like I would turn to the development leaders and say, and that's your responsibility to get it there. And so what do I mean by that? I'm not suggesting that you should be training your own large language models. Actually, the models we have today are great. And so what I'm really talking about is the other parts of the picture. So when you think of like what AI really is and how we experience it, you've got a model that you're talking to. So again, like the models are good enough now to be able to do what we need them to do. And then you've got your prompt. And so that's the next area we go to, which is, are you writing good prompts? And then a piece of that, but I like to separate it out, is the context you provide in that prompt. And so when I see people complain about the output of AI today as it's related to either requirement writing or even code writing, most often they're getting the prompt and the context piece wrong. And so when you think of an experience inside of an editor, and maybe you've like written a comment inside your code asking it to do something for you, that's like level one of doing this well. And so you're not going to get the best output. Just as if you open up a ChatGPT new conversation and you say, hey, I want to add this functionality to my code. We've got this request coming in. Can you write the requirements for it? It's probably going to get you kind of like B level, B- level requirements back. But if you've set up a workflow where the AI has the ability to read your code base, maybe it can use retrieval augmented generation RAG and find the correct files it needs for context, or you can just give it to it directly. And then if on top of that, not only can it get the right code base, but it can understand the principles that you care about and the patterns that you've established in your code base, then that's where I have been blown away at the high level of quality that the models can output. And so like, how can you do that today? A tool I love is called Cursor. It's another editor that many of you probably have heard of at this point. It's a fork from VS Code, so very similar, but they've gone a step further. And there's a few other tools out there like this. Another one's called Windsurf. And they make it really, really easy to give it the context that you need to be able to tag the files that you care about. And then in Cursor, for example, you can create what's called a cursor rules file. It's a dot file. So it is essentially becomes a system prompt that's included in every single prompt that you write to AI. So every time you open up a chat window or you do an inline prompt request, it has this system prompt, and that's where you can define your language, the stack that you've used, the version numbers that you're on, the patterns and principles that you care about. And when all of that setup is done correctly, you get really good output.
Right. You mentioned Copilot, you mentioned Cursor, you mentioned, of course, there's plenty of other tools that are emerging every day, but of course, like Copilot and Cursor are the most ones and I think Claude, it has some good capabilities in generating quotes also as well. I've tried like something and I was surprised, honestly, although like I'm not a developer, but at least, I can understand, the deepness. And I was surprised by the way, actually it writes the commands for you. So kind of a documentation for the code, which was, also good. But what like some of the challenges you've seen, or maybe you have heard from other people about these tools?
Yeah. Well, it's been fun. So our startup is about a year old now. And we actually sold my last company right as, ChatGPT was coming out and Copilot beta was first available. And so I didn't get to make the decisions for that engineering work. But I get to make the decisions for our smaller startup now. And we've leaned really heavy into AI development. And our thought is, what we've done is we use all of the developers use Cursor. We've got Slack channels dedicated to talking about the wins and the challenges with AI. So we can just continue to try to learn and do things like update our Cursor rules file to make it better. I think like so the biggest issue I see out there today is a lack of good context. And so we kind of just went over that and talked about the solutions there. But I think that's where everyone has to start, which is, have I given it the right context in terms of code base and then instructions through like a cursor rules file? Beyond that, there are other challenges still. And the biggest one I see, and I don't know if there's a term for it, but it's essentially when the AI starts to go down this rabbit hole. And that is where it's really important to have someone who understands the language, understands the framework, understands the application to catch AI quick, because it can start to waste hours and hours of your time when it goes down the wrong rabbit hole towards a solution that, either there's a much simpler solution and it started going down this trail. And because the way these generative models work, once those tokens exist in the history, then it's going to continue to go further. That's the biggest issue I've seen with it. And so I'm a big fan of like prototyping out changes quickly and then stopping. And then, as a human and hopefully as an expert or someone who's knowledgeable about the framework and the stack, you can figure out if it's going down the right path or if you need to kind of reset at this early level and change it up. So Andy Grove, famous Intel CEO, had a famous principle about catching things at its lowest value stage is what he called it. And so he used the analogy of if you're making an omelet and serving it to a customer and you've got a bad egg, you want to figure out that the egg is bad before you even crack it. But hopefully it's before you've cracked it and you've combined it with other eggs and you've put more ingredients in it and then you've served it to a customer who gets angry at you. You want to figure out if it's bad much sooner than that. And so you can apply that principle here with AI and kind of check in early with it to make sure that it's going down the right path.
Right. One thing I've seen in general with the large language models, not necessarily, again, I don't talk from an expert perspective here when it comes to generating code, but I tried it with code also as well. And this is exactly to the point that you just mentioned. So if you keep, the conversation, of course, using the prompts, after a while, especially recently, I don't know why, all of the models, at least the one that I use, like Gemini, OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Claude. So all of them, what I feel is like after, I would say maybe 7, 8 iterations, so they become lazy and they start to act weird, which is okay, not weird in a sense, but you understand my point. So they don't deliver. And then I take the same thing from the last time it gave me a kind of a good answer. I put it in a new chat, I started a new prompt, and then I start to get like better answers over there.
Right.
And yeah, so it's like I mean, I have to give it a pause or a break, and then or I have to bring another expert look into it. So I'm not sure if this is valid.
Yeah, no, I've seen exactly the same thing. And so like and I think that's again, as it has these new tokens, it starts to not forget, but we're going to use human words here
Right.
to kind of explain these things. So yeah, it starts to forget what you care about or what the original goal was, and then the performance goes down. And that's again where if you've got a good system set up that allows you to hop into a new conversation and have the right context again quickly, you don't feel like, oh, I've got to stay in this conversation because it has all the context it needs. And if I start a new conversation, it's going to lose that. You're able to kind of quickly hop into a new conversation and continue from there. And then, or go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to say, like, this is also, if I want to do like the comparison to your point, like using human words. So like, I remember if I used to have back in the days, a very complex project and, all the team used to be lost. We say, okay, you know what? Let's erase the board and let's start from scratch. So it's like something very similar, right?
Absolutely. Or like go for a quick walk, like go refill your cup of coffee and see what happens when you come back. So
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing which, maybe I'm gonna take you back to the, management position here. So how is AI, shaping the role of leaders, and engineering managers?
Yeah.
Like, are there like some new skills that they need to be acquired by them? Is there anything that they need to do it different than they used to do before? Like, what's the shift for them here?
Yeah. We think about that in a couple of ways. One, just with AI in general, I think every leader needs to understand that AI is going to lead to increased productivity. Hype aside, whatever, it's 10x or 2x, whatever it is, there is going to be increased productivity. And so that means like individual developer impact is going up. So developers are already the most highly leveraged employees at organization. A single developer can impact your company in ways that a single sales rep or a single HR employee or a single operations employee couldn't dream of, because of the way that they can write this permissionless code that then runs and gets executed a million times over. So now with AI, if that productivity is increasing, developer impact is increasing, and that means that managers and development leaders are in a position to have the greatest impact that they've ever had. Their leverage as managers is increasing. And so they need to be thinking about this and paying attention, understanding AI, and enabling their developers to use these tools and to really lean into it. So that's the first piece. The other way we think about this is it's also creating a new opportunity for leaders to have more tools and have more help. And that's what we're leaning into with DevClarity, because so much of people management is more on the qualitative side of things as opposed to the quantitative side of things. Developers spend 10,000 hours talking to computers and giving computers instructions. And then they wake up one day and they've been promoted to a manager, and now they have to give people instructions. And humans have like hidden compilers. So you can't be sure that what you've said to a human gets interpreted the same way every single time. So it's so different than talking to computers. And so now with generative AI, we're able to create tools to help leaders make sense of and understand some of the more qualitative things, like taking one-on-one notes and then having that as an insight that you can marry with quantitative data. So maybe someone's commits have dropped over the past 2 weeks, but maybe now actually the data exists to understand why that happened. And we can just automatically connect those two things behind the scenes. And so you can get a better sense of what's going on at your organization, where you need to help out, and where you need to leave your developers alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, doing the part which is a little bit fun, and I know like the question, it's hard to ask, and no one has a crystal ball, right? So, but from all what you have seen, Will, and because you are in a, I would say, position where you, because of this of DevClarity, so you are interacting with a lot of managers and of course developers and so on. So what is the future like? I mean, when I say the future, before we used to ask after 10 years, 5 years. I know we cannot predict anymore like that long, but
Sure.
how are you seeing things moving with the AI wave taking us places now?
Yeah. I think while a lot of the future is unclear, I think what is clear to me is whether we want it to happen or not, more development is going to happen through prompting. And it's just clear to me that there's advantages to that. And so I think when you look 12 months out, we will be well on our way towards moving most programming to happen through prompting. And so that's going to have a significant impact on the development world. I think developers are here to stay, and I think that you'll need developers to make the best use of these new technologies and these new tools that make programming easier than ever, because you're able to use human language now, kind of one step further. And I think I would encourage people to think about the history of talking to computers in software development, and think about the spectrum that we've been on, where in the early days, we wrote machine language code that really told the computer exactly what to do at the machine level. And since that point, we've been slowly abstracting towards human language. And, we got to the point with these high level programming languages now where so much of what's underneath, we don't have to deal with anymore. And we can write these classes and, these objects that encapsulate what we actually care about and abstract up. And so in many ways, using human language to create what eventually commands the computer to do something is a natural step. It's different because you can use AI to write a lot of code now in a way that has never been done before, but it's also a natural step up. And so my prediction is that more and more code will be writing with prompting. The good news is that you'll have more and more control over that through giving good context and using things like cursor rules to tell the AI exactly what patterns you want written, to establish the templates that you care about, to have the test coverage that you want. And so developers will become more focused on problem solving and be able to move quicker on the computer code.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Will. As we are coming, to an end and we are almost closing. So, this is I ask all the time. So, what piece of advice you would give to other to-be founders or like new founders or even CTOs, who are in now today, maybe listening or watching us, especially when it comes to AI? Like, final piece of advice.
Yeah. I think my final piece of advice on top of everything I've already said is use the tech. Just like lean into the tech and use it, and then go one step further and form opinions. I think something that took me too long to learn in my first journey as CTO is that I wanted to, get everybody's thoughts on things and come to a consensus about things and try a lot of different things. And you've got to do all of those things, but you also have to find a way to form opinions as a team and then align people towards certain efforts. And so how do those come together? One, use the technology, and then that will give you the information and the knowledge you need to form opinions on things. And then I think if you do this right, you're going to form some opinions that using AI is the right thing to do. And you're going to lean into ways that you can do it. And you're going to end up with an organization and a team that can move faster while still writing really high quality code.
Right, absolutely. Well, finally, where people can get in touch with you and find more about DevClarity.
Yeah. So you can go to devclarity.ai and hear all about how we help development leaders and VPs, engineering managers create structure that helps their developer teams be happy, unblocked, and productive. And then you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. And I'm sure we can post a link, but it's just Will H. Blackburn.
Sure. Yeah, I will take care of that, Will. Don't worry. So this is for the audience. All the links that Will just mentioned, they will be in the show notes. If you are listening on your favorite podcasting app, or if you're watching this on YouTube, they are in the description. Will, thank you very much for being with me here today. A lot of insights, great, also advice to fellow CTOs and founders about leveraging the technology. 100% on that. And also, like what you're currently doing is, I think, something that every software development manager should be looking at, because time is money, and you help them in saving time and increase the productivity. So thank you for sharing your story, and of course more about DevClarity with us today. And this is for the audience. This is usually how I end my episodes. So if you just discovered our podcast by luck, thank you for passing by. If you like it, please give us thumbs up, share it with your friends and colleagues, and of course, come back to listen to a new episode. And if you are one of the people who keeps coming back, thank you for sending me your comments, your suggestions, your questions, and keep them coming. I read all of them, and I try as much as I can to reply as fast as possible. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll meet again very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.